Hello, welcome to RC Video Reviews. It is Friday, May 26th, and what a couple of weeks it's been. Boy, I'll tell you what, we have a lot of material went out, a lot of content went out on the channel, and we got to see Joe Nall for the first time. I mean, that was something else. I've got video of that event playing on the side. Those are a couple of production videos that I put together after Joe Nall, and boy, I'll tell you what. That was interesting. There was Freddie and I, when we left, we know about Joe Nall in the fall, and we both talked about it. We're both down to go in the fall again, and we might even stay for a couple of days this time. It was just a really enjoyable event. Everybody there was very nice, very polite people, and just pure love of the hobby. I mean, I don't know what else you can say. It was just pure love of the hobby. So we had a great time. We had a good trip. We did the road trip over a 2-day period. We went up one night and stayed over, and then attended the event all day and came back on Friday, and it was just a good time. We had a really good time talking to people, meeting new people, and enjoying our time at the event. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit, but I'm going to move on with the week in review after we do the first game, and it was definitely Hobie in there first. So Hobie, how you doing? HB Jeff got in there second and says, happy Memorial Day weekend, or happy Friday, and hopefully you have a nice start to your Memorial Day weekend. Thank you, Jeff. Bill says, never first. That's true, Bill. It's always the bridesmaid, never the bride, says Robert. Well, that fits. Fast Freddy. Boy, we got some stuff for Fred going on. In fact, it's right here in front of you, so we'll talk about that too. We definitely have some neat stuff happening with Fred, and exciting stuff. Hobie says, hi all, gonna listen for a while, hands full, got the kids. Pilot Jam tonight. Yep, we got a Pilot Jam. Jeff is here. How you doing, Jeff? Shane Ellis says hello. How are you? Richard Hill, hello from Australia. Another Aussie in the house. And Rambo Flight, hello from Arizona. How you doing, Rambo Flight? Don't forget, if you check in and say hello so we know you're out there. With that said, we're going to get into a week in review, and then we'll get on to some content. I have some things to share, as usual. So on the week in review, the first one was the 5 things RC beginners should buy. And I don't really think I'm going down this path of making a bunch of beginner or novice content, but that one had been on my mind quite a bit. And I thought about it, and I thought, if I had to start over again, what things would I like to know, when I started over, had I been in the hobby for 5 years, and knowing now what I know then, what would I do to start over? So that was the intention of that video. And the big one was the simulator, and then focusing on the right kind of chargers, and there are a couple other items in there too. But yeah, it was a good video. It was really intended to be for more of the beginners, and that's where I left that one. So 5 things beginners should buy. And then next I did the 16 PWM channels with ELRS, and that was using the S-Bus decoder. And that was just a more of a thought exercise than anything else, because I know some people have asked. I've done a couple of different videos on Express LRS and PWM, and a couple of people have asked, when are we going to have 8 channels and 10 channels? And I'll remind you guys, in case you don't follow the timeline for development, in case you don't do that, the one thing I'd remind you is that we didn't get all those proportional channels in 2.x. That was a 3.x development in Express LRS. So that's when those full 16 channels at half rate and 8 channels at full rate, that's when those fully proportional channels came into Express LRS. So what winds up happening is you got to let the manufacturers kind of embrace the hardware, right? They have to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to put it together in terms of a hardware play, and then, do the production and manufacturing and retail fulfillment and all that stuff. So that was a good video just to kind of hold us over. Hopefully we'll get to a point where we see devices that have 16 channels, perhaps, if people need that much connectivity, and certainly 8 channels. I'm really, 8 channels to me is no brainer. Even 6. I mean, there are a lot of use cases for 6 channels. So hopefully we'll start to see that kind of thing come out in the PWM space. And there's already a 6-channel PWM, by the way. Anyway, that was that video. And then up next were the Joe Nall videos. I did the mainline flying. I said I was going to do 4 videos, but I kind of read the temperature of the YouTubes on whether or not I should keep making those videos. I actually had more content, but by the time I got to the third one, the Joe Nall pilots flying, the pilots and demos, the view rate really tapered off. So I just didn't think it was worth it. It was kind of like the YouTube said, enough. We've had enough Joe Nall. Thank you. And so I didn't bother with the fourth. I was actually going to do a fourth video, but I didn't bother because I was looking at the analytics and they just said, yeah, it's not getting the traction. So I didn't bother with it. Next up was the FMS Flash Maiden. We're going to talk a little bit about that plane. The FMS Flash was fine. It's a flyers plane, and you know, all these small, little, tiny, fast movers, you see similar types of behaviors. They just, you know, they're hard to handle. And the FMS Flash was no exception. It torque rolled. It was a little bit of a handful to launch, and it had a very powerful motor. I don't know if there's like a marketing thing going on out there in the hobby where somebody said, hey, it's a really good idea to have a bunch of little fast mover FPV style planes. I don't know. I really don't know, but there's been a couple of them released in recent times, and the FMS Flash, it was fun to fly. Once you got it in the air and got it moving, I think with a little bit of tweaking, the airplane will be fine. I didn't personally see any adverse behavior, although one guy did come in and he said that he had a FMS Flash, and he said it would stall in a tight turn. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't personally experience that, but you know, I'm not denying it. It happens. I didn't see it. So, but I also wasn't really pushing too hard in the corners either. But anyway, actually, when I made the turns, I would pull up to bleed off the speed and then kind of turn it around and come back down and pick up speed again. But whatever, you know, it's just one of those deals. I think the biggest issue that I saw with that plane that I consider to be problematic, and I say this all the time when it comes to gyros, is you got to give us gain. Gain should be configurable. You got to be able to configure gain because circumstances vary. And at speed, I definitely saw that thing wobble. You know, that plane definitely wobbled at speed. So that gain was just too high. And unfortunately, it's not configurable on the reflex. So that's the sad thing about that one. But other than that, the Flash was fun. I mean, if you like high speed stuff, if you're into burners and you like cooking down the runway, it's kind of neat. One other guy mentioned launch mode, where I put it in stabilize mode, which means after I kind of launched it, it wanted to return itself to level and I lost some altitude, but it picked up and flew out. Another guy came in and said, hey, do the other, I call the uncommanded movement or the wind rejection mode. If you do that, you just put it straight up and down and take off and it'll turn, but the plane will correct itself and not pitch over right away. I thought that was interesting too. That might be a neat way to try and launch that one. I might try that. So anyway, that's it on the Flash. And then next up we had the FRM303, and I've got that little guy right here. We're going to talk a little bit about this tonight, but that was a pretty good video, I thought. And boy, I really kind of like what's going on because this device and the technology they've implemented in the FRM303 is everything I've been asking for Express LRS. So we'll touch on that a little bit later, but that was a good video, detailed video. And then today, just ahead of the PilotJam, I did the Ranger first look. So we got the first look for the FMS Ranger, and Freddie's going to be flying that tomorrow. So that plane is all ready to go. I've got the trainer set up on both of these radios. I'll walk you through what I did here, and we'll talk a little bit about the trainer setup. But yeah, that one's ready to go, and we're going to try and go tomorrow, although the wind report for tomorrow is not great. It's not supposed to rain, and in Florida, it's been raining where we live. It's been raining for like a week. So not sure if we're going to make it tomorrow or not yet. It's looking good. We're going to try. You know, if the weather holds out, we'll do it. But that's it. So I'm going to check the comments. Yeah, David Knutz is on the like whip. I'd appreciate that if you guys could hit the like button. That's always helpful. And Freddie says I should have the Ranger mastered by noon. I have no doubt. Freddie undersells himself. He can control a plane. The SMS Flash was sweet. The FMS Flash, yeah, that was a cool little plane. Again, it's a flyer's plane. It's not a beginner's plane. You know, it takes a little bit of effort. And, you know, I didn't tweak it at all. I didn't spend any time working on it. Maybe adjusting the thrust angle of the motor, maybe adjusting the CG would help. You know, they're all things you can do to get there. I didn't spend the time on that plane to do that. Honestly, to be perfectly honest with you guys, after I did the Maiden, I really wanted to fly the Laser. That Laser and it's just been, you know, a headbutt thing with that plane and I finally got an opportunity to get some nice, pleasant stick time on the Laser. I put an Express LRS receiver in it. I wasn't worried about connectivity. And I just had a very enjoyable afternoon flying that plane, getting to know it a little bit. So it was very, very nice to be able to do that. So that's why I didn't spend too much time on the FMS Flash. There's another reason that I'll get to a little later, but that's that. So let's see. I expect nothing less, says David, regarding Freddie's ability to get up and down on the Ranger. I'll tell you what, man, that Ranger looks like it's going to be a sweet little flyer. I think with the gyro, I can tell you, setting up the plane, I had to do nothing. the radio, the switches, all the servos were reversed correctly. The gyro set up correctly. I literally had to do nothing except plug it in and go, yep, it works. So that was that. It's very simple setup and ready to go. All right, let's see. RW Jet Fan says happy Friday. Well, happy Friday to you too. Wouter Vandenbroek says good evening. Hello. Woder? I don't know. I know I butchered those names. I'm sorry. It's not on purpose. Brett says, hey, y'all, Aussie here. Another Aussie. Sounds so weird. Do you still have the Detram 6-channel gyro receiver? I do, actually. I do have that. I don't have it in anything right now, but I actually have that in my stash. David says, I'm going to be working in the Miami area the 5th through the 16th. Is it humid there in June? Just a touch. Just a touch. Hit that like button, all you watchers. Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Brett. I appreciate you. And that Ranger looked orange in your video. Did it? Did it look orange? It's kind of like a yellow orange. It's not orange, but it's not yellow either. It's kind of in the middle, Robert. So maybe that's your monitor calibration. I did professional color coding with DaVinci and a color card, man. My color card matches. You better have your eyes checked or your monitor calibrated, my friend. All right, so that's it for the weekend review. Let's get into some material. I've got a little bit of stuff to cover. We'll talk a little bit about Joe Nall. I did a little review, a little highlight on it, but I can tell you that, $35, I think, to fly. I'm not sure if that was per day. Freddie and I paid the $15 and we were just spectating that day. And I'll tell you, man, I have never seen so much radio control flying in one day in my life. It didn't matter where you looked, something was in the air. Something was flying. Even at the 3D line, when we were leaving the 3D line, they had this commons area, a courtyard. And even there was a Frisbee flying, a dog flying through the air, chasing it. There was a little profile foamy flying. And then when you looked just beyond that, they had all the 3D planes out there flying. It was just ludicrous how much was going on. And I'll tell you, the other thing that really impressed me was, if you look on the side, there's a jet. The jets, the prop jobs, they all intermixed. They didn't care. They didn't care. And I was waiting, not that I wanted to see it, I don't want to see anybody lose their stuff, but you kind of wait, in this chaos to see a wreck. Nothing. I didn't see a single thing. So it seemed like all the pilots were very well matched to their planes. And all I can tell you is, if you ever thought about going to Joe Nall and you're kind of considering it, just go. Do it at least once. I was just flat out impressed. It was just such an impressive event. And like I said, the people were polite. It was kind of a really chill and mellow crowd. You just did your thing. When I got there, I put my quad up and I was kind of wondering, man, I hope somebody doesn't chew me out for flying my quad. Nobody cared. It's just everybody's flying everything all over the place. So it was fine. And talk about a variety. Look at the Corsair. That Corsair. Watch this sidebar video and watch that Corsair come. He parks right in front of me and he folded up his wings. It was an absolutely beautiful airplane. That's a warbird I could get into. I always liked the Corsair anyway, but he's got that lighter blue scheme with the white belly, so you don't have as many issues seeing it. And boy, the folding wings were just very cool. Absolutely stunning airplane. I loved it. This was a true modeler's airplane in the truest sense of the word. I mean, look at the weathering. It looks so good, and it sounded absolutely fantastic as well. Isn't that a beautiful airplane? Just absolutely stunning, man. I loved it. Look at the wings. That's so cool. And he parked right in front of me. It couldn't have been any better. I don't know if he was helping me out or what, but man, if he ever watches the video, thank you. I didn't get to meet the pilot, but absolutely beautiful airplane. So yeah, Joe Nall, it's a fantastic event. If you're ever in a position to go, I recommend it. And I know Freddie and I are talking about going to Joe Nall in the fall. We're going to probably spend some more time there. And I may make that a regular event. It was just something else to see. If you love radio control flying, that was kind of like the Super Bowl. I mean, I've done some other events recently. We did Top Gun in Lakeland. We did Jets in Lakeland. We've done some other events, Torches. We've done some video work at Torches, the helicopter stuff. But this is like the granddaddy, man. This was serious business. They had so much money in airplanes. And I mean, look at this. This was a sport jet. I don't even know what it is, but talk about fun to watch. It was just absolutely staggering. So if you love radio control, go to Joe Nall. Try and make it. I'm going to check the comments, and then we're going to move on. See, David says the Ranger looked yellow. Told you, Robert. Sounds like you're colorblind to me. Somebody is. Let's see. Try it in Flash. Can change the gain in radio. Try it in Flash. I'm not sure what you mean by can change the gain in radio. Not sure what you mean by that, EQ. It looked insane how many planes. Yeah, they were always going up, man. It was ridiculous. Planes going up in the air. Every time you turned around, it was almost impossible to keep track of them. There were planes I'm like, oh, I want to see that one land. And, you know, I missed it because I was watching another plane take off. It was crazy. Bill says, Robert's just upset that the Stanley Cup is coming to Florida. Is it? Is it coming to Florida? I wouldn't know. That's a goofy place for it. We're hot. We don't have ice down here. Wouter says, that's okay. It's a Dutch name. I can't help it. Yeah, I know. I just always feel bad if I can't pronounce it the right way. So I just feel bad. I try not to butcher them, but you know, it's the way it is, I guess. Robert says, looks like a swarm of dragonflies. Oh yeah. Yeah, it does. There's so much activity, and everywhere you turn, there's another plane, another crazy maneuver, and they all just seem to get along. It was a really well-run event. I mean, everyone just seemed so nice, and everybody was really chill with each other, and it was just well done. Really, really, I think embodied the spirit of the hobby, as far as I'm concerned. When you have a bunch of people who just love the sport and the hobby of flying, and talk about some amazing stick skills. Oh my gosh, it was crazy. All right, Rambo says, your video coverage was tops. Great to see all your effort paying off. Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, I made a real effort to try and. Oh, that camera, right? The camera is so paying off now. I just love the new camera, and it paid off, I think, at the Joe Nall event. It really did. I got the right focal length, I got the right zoom, had some good, focus control. Even though the conditions were not great, if you look at the video, you can see it was very overcast, and that makes it hard on a camera to get the color pop because you don't have any sun hitting the plane, so you don't get the color. But even in that situation, I think the camera performed fairly well and did a pretty good job capturing what was arguably a fairly representative view of the colors that we saw. I mean, it was very lifelike. That's what it looked like to me in the naked eye. It looked just like that. So it was really, really something else. Boy, I'm really pleased with the camera performance. And again, I appreciate all you guys who've been around for so long watching me take the lumps with the camera. And I know we've even had some recent lumps with the camera. So I appreciate your patience, but we'll get it. We're getting it ironed out, and it's going to pay off over time for sure. So Brett Pound says, lots of money on wings. Oh yeah, man. So much. Yeah. It's really something when you look at it. It kind of helps put things in perspective. I get a little wrapped around the axle if I paid 20 or 30 bucks for a certain part, and I watch these guys and, they're in the thousands, 10 to 20, maybe 30 grand in the air at a time, depending on some of these planes. No doubt about it. So fascinating stuff though. All right, let's see. Randall. Oh, Hobie says Panthers, baby. What are Panthers? They're a hockey team? I don't know. I follow sports, but not hockey. Randolph Latal. I just bought an FMS Ranger 850, not in the area yet. Reflex was bad and replaced by warranty. Then it set up a wing servo cratered and the elevator control was backward. Tail dragger and flaps coming. Wow. I hope we have a better experience than you, Randolph. But hopefully FMS is standing by you and getting those issues taken care of. So hopefully you get it worked out. All right. XD Sax says, hello, could Maytech receivers manage higher torque servos on ELRS? Well, it's funny you bring that up. Stay tuned. We're going to cover that. I can't even believe it. Are you like a wizard or something? Did you read my mind? Did you go to Hogwarts? Because I can't even believe you just said that, because I actually have here. Look, I'm not lying. We're going to cover that. Unbelievable. He even asked that question. EQRC says, if you use that receiver Detrum 6 channel in Flash, you can change the gains in the Detrum. Oh yeah. In that one, sure. We were talking about the reflex though. The reflex, you cannot. The reflex is hard coded. Yeah. Most gyros, you should be able to change the gain. I'm a big fan of being able to do that. So Robert says he doesn't use the Detrum radio. Yeah. I used it for, demo and review purposes, but that's it. I don't really fly with that. I fly with these. So David says, dude, your channel has come so far from when I first found it. 500 or so subscribers. Yeah, David's right. David's one of the old timers, man. David's been around for a long time, so he's an old timer. Hey, speaking of being an old timer, I got a giveaway tonight, and it's a good one. You guys are gonna like it. So hang tight. If you like free stuff, it's free, and I'm gonna give it away. I'll cover the details on that later. And while I'm kind of taking a station break on that, I do want to make sure I say thank you to all my patrons. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for dipping into your wallets and helping me on the channel. You guys help me get stuff, right? You help. Your contributions help me bring content to the channel. It helps me find things like this and things like this that nobody knows about just yet. We're going to talk about that as well. It's the kind of thing that lets me do that. So I appreciate the patrons. And if you want to help out, I've got a tier for $3 a month. It's patreon.com/RC Video Reviews. For as little as $3, you can kick in. It's a once a month thing. It's like a cup of coffee. So if you want to help, that's great. If not, I understand. But I do want to make sure I just send a little love out and give a shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your help in helping me bring content to the channel. So I just really do appreciate you. And another reminder, hit the like button if you don't mind. All right, let's see. The Blue Cub was incredible. Yeah, man. Wasn't that something? I think that was a 48%. It looked, I almost wanted to walk up, open the door, and get in it. It was that big, and it was flown incredibly well. I mean, it was like the guy, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much stick time the pilot had on that craft, but it was flown amazingly well. Perfect. Perfect. Let's see. I mean, if Maytech receivers don't need a flight controller to do what you're saying. Well, hang on. We'll talk. We're going to talk, Sax. Hold your question for a little while. We'll get into it. When you see it come up, when you see this come up, then ask your questions. Do you want to sell the Detrim equipment? Sure. Yeah. Hit me up on Discord. We can talk about that. I don't really need it. It's just hanging on the wall. I've got a couple of different radios, some gyros, some receivers, I've got some stuff I can unload. I don't need it. Okay. That's it for the station break. Let's move on. And what's up next? Oh, another trainer config. Love the Corsair. I did too, Kevin. That Corsair is friggin' beautiful, man. It really was something else. Okay, I'm going to hide the chat window because you guys don't care about that. And what I want to do is just show you, oh, it's a 60% that Cub. I thought it was a 48%. I thought I saw somewhere that was a 48% Cub. 60%? That wouldn't surprise me. It was big. It was a big plane. I didn't get a chance to talk to the pilot, unfortunately. I didn't get a chance to walk up and say hello. So I didn't get to do the interrogation to figure out more about that. Jeff says, I saw a post in RC groups showing that the PID values in the reflex gyro can be changed by, I saw that too. Not exactly user-friendly. Yeah, I saw that too, Jeff. And I'm not sure how smart it would be going in and editing a DLL. And then obviously with the DLL, that means that you're going to have write access to the file system on the gyro. And I guess so. Look, at the end of the day, sure, there's a lot of hacks that can be done, but for me on a gyro like that, I just kind of call it like I see it. You know, I call what I saw and shared it, and then I'll move on. Because for me in production, my choice right now for production gyro is A3 Super 4. I mean, to me, that's just an absolute no-brainer. So I do appreciate you sharing that. I did see that DLL thing, and I thought about it, but nah, I'm not. I just don't feel like messing with it. Let's see. Okay, Discord. There we go. EQRC says I use it. Thanks. Well, yeah, we'll talk, man. Get on Discord. We'll talk about it. All right, let's get into the trainer config. So what I did here, I'll just, okay, I got the old WTO1 out. And the reason for this is because normally what I would like to do is have Express LRS talking to my model and then use the internal RX configuration on the radio for the trainer. Okay, that's my normal preferred route of doing things. But this is a sponsored video by FMS. So they've got a FlySky IA6 receiver, which means I need to use a FlySky protocol. Okay, I'm just going to leave their gear in place. So for that reason, I had to use more of an old school arrangement with the WTO1. So I'm going to turn the WTO1 on. Well, I'll turn my radio on first. I'm just going to show you guys a quick little trainer config that I whipped together. It's just another way to think about the problem. That's all it is. So turn the brightness down. We'll turn this guy on. And this will be the trainer radio. So this is the radio Freddie's going to be flying tomorrow. And that's the trainer radio. And then on this side, it's the master radio. And then all I need to do is turn the WTO1 on. So I press the button and hold it. And that's going to go ahead and power on. And there I've got a bind. So we'll look at the telemetry real quick just so you can see it. There's the bind on the trainer radio, and it looks like I do have, I turned the global functions off, guys, so hang tight just a minute. Let me figure out if I can operate this radio, if I can figure out how it works. I'm just going to turn the backlight brightness down just a little bit so it's easier on the video to see. Is that easier? Not so much. Needs to come way down, huh? Okay. All right, that's a little better. Okay, so now I'll hit the telemetry button, and there we go. We've got telemetry. That telemetry is coming off of the WTO1, and that's bound in D16 mode. So the student radio talks to the dongle, okay? And then this radio, the master, receives the dongle input from the trainer, and then it sends out via the internal NPM to the radio in the plane, okay? And it's AFH DS2A. I'll give you a look at that real quick so you can see it. This should be, you know, fairly well understood by most of you, I think. But here we go. This is the AFH DS2A protocol, FlySky 2A protocol, and that's what will be bound to the Ranger, okay? So the AFH 2A, I'm saying it wrong, AFH DS2A, that goes to the Ranger, and then the WTO1 goes to the student. Okay, so that's that piece. And then let me show you real quick. I'm just going to bring up outputs real quick. There's model. And right now, if I move the trainer, the student radio, we get nothing. And here's the configuration I'm going to show you real quick. I'm just going to hit the momentary switch like that. And now we should see movement on the outputs from the trainer radio. And if I hit it again, it's off, right? So I can control via the master. If I hit it, the master no longer sends outputs. That's the mixer, not the outputs. The red is the mixer, not the outputs. The outputs will come on the blue line from the trainer radio. Okay, so basic trainer setup, nothing really magical about it. I just thought I'd give you a quick look at stickies, because sticky switches are one of those, I believe, underutilized features of the radio. And I did this one. It's a real basic setup that I did with sticky switches. So I thought I'd show it to you. So what we have here is logical 01. You know, I'm almost going to change that line to I need to get my pencil. Go ahead and judge me. If you've been around for a while, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, L01 is a sticky switch, and all I've done is set up a sticky switch for SF and SF down. And SF down on my radio is over here. Remember, I've switched my momentary switches from stock. I desoldered the switch and moved it over to this side. I like my momentary over here. So I hit SF and let it go, and that turns L01 on and off. So there is L01 on, and there's L01 off. If you're not familiar with a sticky switch, the best metaphor I have for it is think about a light switch in a room, and the throttle is actually a really good demonstrator for this. So if you walk into a room and you hit a light switch, so let's say this is the light switch and it's off, and I walk in and I turn a light switch on, that's a sticky. It'll stay there until there's only one other action you can take on that switch, and that's to press it on the bottom, right? You press the bottom, and now it's off. That's what a sticky switch does. So what will happen is right now you can see L01 is off. It's unhighlighted, right? It's just white right here. So it's off. Now, if I hit my SF switch, that's like moving the light switch to the up position. Now it'll sit there and stay until the second condition is met. And check out what the second condition is. It's the same switch. So what ends up happening is this switch becomes a sticky switch, even though it's momentary. And what will happen is that way I don't have to hold anything. All I have to do while I'm flying, I let Freddie fly. He's got control. If I hit model and I'm watching Freddie fly and everything's going good and I see something I don't like, all I got to do is hit that switch and I take control. So it's a very simple configuration. I have a much more elaborate one called Quick Take Back, which is, I think, even better. But this is a nice simple one if you just need simple. And that's why I'm showing it to you. Okay, so that's it on the logical switch. That's it. One logical switch. All I did was a sticky with SF down and SF down. Now all I have to do is hit a momentary switch and it turns it on and then turns it back off. And by the way, don't forget you can use T5 and T6 as a momentary switch. If you guys want to see it, I'll show you how to do it. Leave a comment in the chat window, and if you want to see it, I'll do it. But it's very easy to use T5, T6 as a momentary switch as well. You don't have to use this one, especially if you use it for something like instant trim, for example. Okay, so that's it on the logical switch. That's all you have to do. Now, on the special functions, there's something else we have to do, and that's that we have to enable the trainer configuration. So all I'm going to do is scroll down to where I did that, and you can see I've got a special function L01. So when L01 is on, trainer mode, and we'll take a look at it so you can see it. I do this stuff all the time, so looking at the other screen is fine for me. So my switch is L01, and the function is trainer, and I'm giving Freddie channels. And the reason I'm giving him channels instead of just sticks is because the plane also has a gyro. So I want him to be able to control the gyro if he wants to, okay? So that's it. That's the special function. And then the other thing that I've added to this is a couple of text files, or audio prompts rather, and this one says control trainer, and this one says control master. I made those. They're on. I can put them on Discord if you guys want them. So I just have an audio prompt so that I can turn the radio up, and when I change control, Freddie will be able to hear it.
Trainer control.
So that says trainer control. Now I'll do the other one.
Master control.
Master control. Okay. So when L01 is off, the master has control. When L01 is on, the trainer has control. Very simple configuration, brain dead simple, very easy to go. All right, let's see. I'm going to check questions real quick, and then we'll move on. Let's see. Elevon, let's see. No flaps ring, Elevon. We're talking about flaps. Let's see. At the end of the day, it should be user-friendly. Can any plane gyro be used in a flying wing style plane with just 2 flaps and a throw? Okay, you guys are addressing that. Okay. Is there a master trim? Yeah, I think if the student, well, let's check. So if you want to see what's going on there, let's check and see. We'll bring up the model configuration. Now, if the student adds trim, you can see what happens there, right? That's trim from the student radio. I'll recenter that trim. In fact, I'll bring this one in so you can see it. Here's the trim on the student radio, and then you can see the output trim is conveyed to the master. Now, when that trim comes back, it's centered. Now, if I were to trim right here and use my trim, you can see that shows up in the mixer, but it's not conveyed to the output until I switch to master control. And if I do that, then the output now matches my trim. So that's the way that works. I hope that answers the question. All right, let's see. It's programmed into the master. Same feature. The way mine set up, the master controls the trim. Well, I mean, the trim should really come from the student, because if you're giving the student control, it's whatever. Trim is nothing more than an adjustment of pulse width. So if you're giving the pulse width control to the student, then whatever pulse width modifications or manipulations they make should also come from the student, including trim. That's why when I give the student control, the student can add trim, and that you can see the output going over to the side. If I bring that trim back to the center, the output also comes back to the center. Okay, so you're giving the student control of the signal being sent to the receiver, and I think that includes trim as well. Okay, all right, let's see. I love your sticky trainer switch. Oh, good, Jeff. I'm glad you like that. It's a fun little trick, right? I love using sticky and edge. I think they're underutilized, and when you kind of get the hang of them, they can be really, really very useful. Nobody asked to see the T6 and T5 switch as a momentary, so I'm going to go ahead and skip past that because nobody said, yeah, let's see it. So we'll skip that. So that's the trainer config, just a real basic thing, and it's simple. I think if you forego the audio prompts, you're looking at one line for a logical switch, and then on the special functions, you're looking at one line. If you don't want the audio prompts, one special function, and that's it. So John, can you change the trim on the master? Yes, you can. It depends on how you set up the trainer settings on the radio, Robert. So if you are in the trainer mode, let's go back to the trainer mode and radio settings and trainer. So when you're in the trainer mode, right here, if you're using sticks, I don't think it works in channels, but if you're using sticks, these little indicators here have to do with whether or not the student replaces or the master replaces or adds the student's feedback. So in replace mode, whatever the student does, that replaces anything the master puts out. In the add mode, whatever the student does, the trainer can counteract. So if the student is feeding some type of trim and the trainer wants to counteract that trim, they could simply use the opposite trim. And if you use the combine or the add mode, then they offset each other. That's the only way that I know to do it. If you're in channels mode, channels mode, I don't think that works. I believe, and I reserve the right to be wrong because I haven't tested it, but I believe that this is for sticks mode only. I don't think it applies to channels mode. Okay, so if you're in sticks mode, then yes, you can combine input from the student and the master together, if that makes sense. Okay, all right. I hope that clears that up. Only when the master has control. Yeah, if you're in channels mode, then that's the only time that if you're in channels mode. Again, let's just go back to the output so we can see it. If we're right now, I'm moving the stick and you can see the mixer is moving. There's the aileron, but there's no output going with it. And that's because we're in trainer mode. The outputs come from the trainer. So it doesn't, if I'm on the master and I move my trim, I'm moving the trim all the way over to the right. You see the mixer went all the way to the right, but the output didn't change. So that doesn't affect the trim from the student radio. Okay. Now what'll happen is as soon as I take control by hitting the switch, now the output switches to match my trim. Does that make sense? So if you're in channels mode, there is no interaction between the data that I'm aware of. In sticks mode, you can. So if you guys want to see it, I'll turn it on. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm just going to change this. I'm going to set my trim back. We're going to go into special functions. I'm going to go down to the switch, and instead of channels, I'm going to put it in sticks. So there we go. Now we're in sticks mode. Now what'll happen in the monitor is when I enable it, the student still has control. Now if I move my stick, there's nothing there because of the configuration that I have set up. But if we go in and change that configuration and we say we want to be in add mode, so I'm going to use the aileron, we'll do add mode. Now I'll back out and turn the monitor back on. So here's the student. Now as the instructor comes in and I go left, you see how it's countermanding what the student does? Let me bring them both into view. So here's the student radio. I'm going to go all the way to the right, and you can see the output is all the way to the right. Now, if I bring this stick all the way to the left, you see what it does? It countermands the student's setup. So this is where your trim could take effect. If I go ahead and do a trim all the way to the left, for example, now you can see that the trim is in my mixer and my output. So that does impact the student. However, the student can also go in and set trim and say, I want to bring it all the way to the right. And when they do that, it winds up being recentered. So on this radio, I'll just show you the trim so you can see it. On this radio, the trim is all the way to the left. And on this radio, the trim is all the way to the right. The result is that the trim from each radio countermands each other. Because this one's all the way left, this one's all the way right. The output says, okay, fine, we're 0. And that's what it does. If I bring this one back to center, so I'm bringing this one back to center, see what happens over here. So let's do that. And now I'll go to this radio and bring it back to center. There we go. So that's how you can have them interact with each other if you want to do that. You have to you have to go in the add mode on the radio for your setup. So you click on system, the trainer button, and then it's this little guy right here. Use the plus instead of the colon. If you use the plus, then the two inputs are combined together. That makes sense? Okay. All right. The power of EdgeTX, but that is because of the complexity. I still love hearing all your approaches because that helps them out. See, Brett gets it, man. Brett, you get me. That's the point. That's exactly the point. You know, so many times I do these videos and people come in and are like, well, I don't like that way. I like this way. And why, it doesn't matter. I say all the time, it's your hobby, your money. Do what makes you happy. My whole thing is to ideate. It's to give you ideas and to show you how the stuff works, right? If I can, like we just did, right? Now you know how this works. You know what this is all about. You know the difference between channels and sticks and where you can combine data. Now you can go out and create scenarios that work for you, right? That's the point. So Brett, I appreciate the comment, man. You get me. All right, I was trying to figure out how hot I had it on my radio, and you just explained it. Well, there you go. Good, Robert. I'm glad we could help you, man. Glad to help. Glad to help. Trims for student master only really a problem if set differently. Yeah, well, the way I would do it, honestly, is I'd teach a student how to use instant trim. Put instant trim on a switch, tell them to trim away, and keep hitting that instant trim switch. When you fly full size, and I'm a licensed pilot, when you fly a full size plane, you're constantly working the trim. So let the student have the trim and let them trim it the way it works for them. I don't really care. Trim to me is kind of personal anyway, but whatever. Just let them hit the instant trim. Teach them how to use it, let them hit it. And then when you take control, you make sure you're trimmed up and everything should be good, right? You go from this person feels like they're flying straight and level and they're happy with it. And then if you take control, then you're flying straight and level and you're happy with it. That's all. But if you want to influence what they're doing, you can. If you want to just take control, you can do that as well. You can completely turn the student off and take over full control so they can't influence your sticks. The reason this might be useful is if somebody's trying to do a maneuver, say they want to do a bank, and you say, well, let's give it a little bit more. See, that's where you want it. That would be useful, right? That's the use case for it. Or, if they go to take off and they do one of these numbers on the elevator, you can say, yeah, not so much. Let's nose it down a little bit. And they still maintain some control, but you're kind of working the sticks together. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that. In military aircraft, where I have 1,000 hours in military helicopters, only one pilot has control of the aircraft. The other one lets go. I have control, you have control. It's very, very regimented. So I'm not personally a big fan of that. I'd rather just say you have it or I have it. I don't like the stuff in the middle, but whatever, If it works for you, who am I to tell you you're wrong? That's the point. All right. So let's see. Dirk Wilhelm says, what to buy for getting the wireless trainer connection? Honestly, Dirk, if you're using, I just covered this a little earlier. This is a WT01 and it is effective. It is effective. It's a D16 dongle. It works. You bind this radio to this dongle and it works. You just plug it into your jack up on the top and you're good to go. However, I'll show you something that I like better. Let me show you what I like better. If you go into the radio setup and you look at internal RF, there's an option in here. You'll see a couple of them and they're called RX. So if you put this in RX mode, what happens is this is FS2A RX. So that's FlySky 2A, AFHDS 2A, and it's RX mode. So what that does is makes the MPM look like a receiver to this guy. So on this radio, we can go in and under the internal module, we could set it to be FlySky, and that would be, where is it? We do FlySky 2A right there. We set that to FlySky, we bind to this one, and now this is the student on the transmitter using AFHDS2A, talking AFHDS2A to the MPM, which is configured as a receiver. Then, and I don't want to make that change because I already have this set up to work. Yeah, okay, good. I got it. Then what you do is on your external RF, if you have Express ELRS, like I do on this radio, you simply turn this on and connect to your model. So that way you don't need a dongle at all. And that's my preferred method of doing it. I said this earlier when I started the whole trainer thing, that I'm using this method with the dongle because it is a sponsored craft and I want to use their receiver. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Okay. But for me, if I have Express ELRS on my plane or my model, then I would use Express ELRS over the air, and I would put this. And there's a couple of other modes too, by the way. It's not just FlySky. There's FlySky. There's FreeSky. There's FreeSky RX, and then there's also a DSM RX up here as well. There's DSM RX. So there's a couple of different ones you can use. So if you're using DSM RX, for example, you could do the same exact thing with a Spectrum radio or any DSM transmitter radio. You could do the same thing. This thing when you put it in this mode, the MPM acts as a receiver. Okay. So it's actually a pretty cool trick and it works. I've done it. It works. So it's absolutely very cool. All right. Let's see. So trim out WTO1. Okay. You can get them on, yeah, the WTO1s you can get on Amazon. I think that's where I got, no, Radio Master sent me mine, but yeah, you can get them on Amazon and Race Day Quads. Drummond says, hey, John, did see a lot of people using the TX16S at Joe Nall. Drummond, I didn't actually go up to the flight line. I was on the flight line, but not where the pilots were because I wanted to get you guys the footage. It's one of the comments I was talking about with Fred. When you're there kind of working the event, you're working the camera, you're kind of working. You're not doing as much spectating, you're working the event. So sadly, I didn't get up on the flight line to see what they had, but I did see a broad mix of all kinds of stuff. I saw Jetty and Spectrum and of course Radio Master. There was a lot of different radio equipment there without question. Let's see. As a low stick hours pilot ever for one person, only one person controlling, quick intervention is better than tweaks. Yeah, I agree. And that's the way I like to fly as well. Fast Freddy says we used the dongle trainer once before the profile plane. Yeah, it works. The dongle trainer works. It's a WTO1. I need to get some double-sided tape. You know what they really need? I need somebody to make a 3D print or something that'll affix this to the handle or something for me so I don't have this dongle flopping around in the wind. I don't like it when my dongle's flopping in the wind. Okay. Was that was a, did that work? Hold on. I don't think it worked. There we go. Let's see. I use the FreeSky RX. Yeah, FreeSky RX. Any of the RX protocols work. Any of them work. Anything in there that you want to do, they'll all work. Just any of the RX versions. I need another radio to screw around. Oh yeah, you got to get another. Get a Boxer. Boxer would be a great second radio. Really, really good. In fact, I was going to have Freddie fly the Boxer until I remembered my Boxer is Express LRS, so I forgot about that. Probably need to get an external 401 module for that one, but this one will work just fine. It'll work. Robert says Facebook Marketplace has a whole whack of TX16S and Zoros for sale. Oh, cool. How do you like the eSheen 6-position switch layout? I love it. I prefer this to be down here because when I'm flying here, it's simple answer right here. I'm flying right here. If I want to change the mode right there, instead of going like that. And what I wind up doing is searching with my index finger. I like it down here much better, to be honest. I think it's a better solution. Better positioning. Takes advantage of this dead space and it puts it right where my thumb wants to be. You know, I can easily find it with either thumb right there. I like it a lot. So that's definitely preferable. Okay. Well, that was a good topic. Jeff says, send me a dongle and I'll do the 3D print for you. They're $20, Jeff. You can buy it cheaper and I can send it to you. For Pete's sake, you don't have dongles in Australia? Seriously, man, that would be cheaper. All right. Oh, and by the way, on the 3D channel, Jeff shared a really cool 3D print for an Express LRS CRSF to PWM converter board. So if you have a 3D printer, check the 3D channel on the Discord. And Jeff did just share it, and I pinned it because I like it a lot. So if you're using those converter boards, check that out. Thanks, Jeff, for sharing that, man. I appreciate you. Yeah, the dongles are cheap, man. There's nothing to it. Dongles are cheap. 15, 20 bucks, right? I think the eSheen 6-position location is better than TX16. Yeah, I agree. And, you know, I also am really praying, I've been begging them, please put the monitor up top for the next radio, master radio. I hope for the next flagship they take this monitor and move it up here. I'm just praying for it. That would be so much preferable to me. And the main reason for that is because my neck strap is right here and I'm constantly fiddling with my strap to get anything done on the screen. And being that these are touchscreen, if the neck strap is down here and the screen is up here, it's nice and clear, easily visible, tilt the radio, bam, you can see everything. I really hope they do that. I don't know if they will or not. I've been begging them. I've been asking them, please, 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 please put the screen up top. So hopefully they'll get that one right. Jeff says, just joking. All right. Wow. Yeah. If you got Jeff money, you don't need to worry about 15 bucks for a dongle. I know, Jeff. I know what's going on around here, man. Come on. All right. Let's see. That's enough for the trainer config. I think we beat that one to death. Okay. Next up, I got a new one. So let me put this stuff away. I'm going to turn the dongle off here. That's done. Turn the radios off. Turn the radios off. Now, we had a gentleman earlier in the conversation. I'm going to see if I can find his name because his name is new to me. It was XD Sachs. So XD Sachs asked a question about current and Express LRS. So there are a couple of things. You guys have seen this before, but you haven't seen this before. And I wanted to share this with you because I have a video. It's not there. It's not there, obviously. Let's see. It is, I'm going to have to add it. Give me just a moment. I'm going to add this window for you. I thought I had it. Let's try this. Hang tight. I'm just bringing up an image because I want to share this with you, and it's worth it. Okay. Here we go. We're coming into it now. All right, this little device is called a Happy Model EPW6 2.4 gigahertz ELRS PWM receiver. This one is a temperature compensated oscillator. It's got, if you look at the screen, it's got a 34 volt voltage sense and it takes 4 to 9 volts. Now they're starting to get it. Now they're starting to get it. So what I just showed you is this receiver. In fact, I put a link in the description for these. So if you guys want to get them, you can. And I'll have you know, I just bought a small little stash of these little devils because I've already flown this in my F-22 Raptor and my laser. The laser video that I just posted, the second, no, I didn't actually, no, I didn't post a laser video. It was when I was flying the FMS Flash. We didn't do laser video. But when I went out that day and flew the laser over and over, this is the receiver that I put in it. And I love it. It's got the VBAT pin, so you can get one wire voltage sensing. It does work with the master S-bus, so one pin for S-bus into your gyro, which is awesome, and PWM output. So if you want to do PWM output to gear, landing gear, flaps, lights, pan and tilt, stuff like that, you got plenty of pins that you can do that with on this receiver. So this little guy, $13, $13. The only downside as far as I can see is one antenna, but I've got telemetry logs. I posted them in Discord and shared them. The telemetry logs, it was beautiful. No problems at all, no concerns at all. I think at one point I saw a hit of 1,000 milliwatts for like a millisecond. Other than that, the entire flight, it was 25 almost exclusively, and I saw like 1 or 2 bumps to 50 milliwatts. So this little receiver did the job. Here's a quick little wiring diagram. They've got them in stock at Race Day Quads. The link is in the description, $13. This is, I've ordered a stack of these. These are going to go in a lot of my planes right now. I can tell you that. Next up, to answer XD's question about current. So if you have a situation where you're worried about current, and it's a good question, we've actually talked about this several times on the channel. Here's what you do. You get one of these little boards, and a link to this is in the description as well. So these are from Servo City, and they're Builda power distribution boards. They've got the ability to support sustained current at 10 amps and peak current at 30 amps. And you can actually use these little dip switches to join the channels together. So the way this works, just to give you an example, I'll pop a couple of my little servo extensions off here. And this is not soldered in, so if it pops off, don't laugh at me. It's not soldered in. It's just up here for an example. So if you have a PWM output that you need to make sure you've got current for, you can take the PWM feed off of your receiver and then simply plug it into this little extension board. And then from the board, you would use your servo connection coming in on the other side. So the idea here, of course, is that you can feed this with a battery, a 2-cell or a 3-cell battery. The board doesn't care about the voltage. Obviously your electronics do. So this is 9 volts. So a 2S battery would work. And that means you can plug a 2S battery in for a flight pack and you can deliver 30 amps with an express ELRS solution. I can't even believe the dude asked that question. XD Sachs asked this question. I couldn't even believe it. Just as a point of fact, I do have this set up in a couple of different planes right now. In fact, 3 of them, 3 of my big planes all have this type of setup in there. So I'm feeding PWM from my receiver to a power distribution board that's capable of 30 amps for 30 seconds. And then the leads go to the servos. So I wanted to show this to you because right now, this little arrangement, if I were to fold in a gyro, so these really, honestly, there are 2 different main categories for my planes right now that I'm working on. Number 1, this is a big plane setup because I've got power capabilities. And with a big plane, I don't really use a gyro. I don't put a Hobby Eagle in because they're big. I just don't need it. The second configuration would be one where it's a smaller plane. And in a smaller plane, instead of using power, because you don't really on smaller planes, you don't worry about power distribution boards. In that arrangement, I'm feeding S-bus via pin 2 into a Hobby Eagle. This says Super 2. It's an older one. Don't worry about it. But I use the Super 4. So I'll feed S-bus into the S-bus input for an A3 Super 4, and then I'll feed the outputs to my servos. So those are really the 2 configurations I've got going on right now. They both rely on Express ELRS. One case is S-bus and PWM as a combo. So this is what I have in my F-22 and my Avanti. It's a very simple setup. And on the bigger planes, I don't use the gyro generally, although you could if you wanted to. You could put the gyro in between You could do something like this where you fed S-bus into the gyro, and then the gyro outputs go to the power distribution block, and the power distribution block goes to the servo. It would work, no problem at all. So if you wanted to add a gyro to a big plane setup, you could absolutely do that. But for my use case, I have either big plane, that's a big plane arrangement, and small plane, that's a small plane arrangement. If I want the gyro, you don't have to always use a gyro, but if you do want a gyro, that's how I do it. That's how I'm going about things these days. The only thing, like I said, that I wish this had was dual antenna. If this had dual antenna, it'd be game, set, match right now for me, because PWM, CRSF, S-bus, you get it all. And it's a $13 receiver and highly reliable. So this is like game, set, match type device for me. And it's also, again, why I've really been so excited about seeing S-bus mature on Express LRS, because it enables us to do things like settle on a single platform and be done. And keep in mind, binding phrase, once you put a binding phrase, you never worry about binding again. That's over. Thing of the past. So, yep, that's it. That's pretty much state of the art for John right now. Now, that said, I want to tell you guys real quick, I've been doing testing with 11-bit and 12-bit, and all I'm going to say, because there's a lot of passion about it, and there's always an exception in some use cases. Somebody will come up with like, oh, what if you're on Betaflight, or what if you're on iNav, or what if you're in a gyro, or what if there's always something. But here's what I'm going to say about my experience in tracking down 11-bit and 12-bit over the air. I don't think it matters. I think that if you're flying one of these radios with normal sticks that look something like that, and especially if you're a thumber, I just don't think it matters. I don't think it's possible, because I've done it with a decoding board, a signal board, trying to recognize an 11-bit or 12-bit movement, and it's so sporadic that it's just ridiculous. And even if I did register an 11-bit hit on my board, I don't think it would ever show up on the servo or the control rods. So I had to do the testing for myself. I wanted to see it for my own. A lot of people talk about it, but I'm just going to tell you guys right now, 10-bit's fine. For me, I have no problem flying 10-bit, and I honestly don't see any practical advantage that I would have working on an 11-bit or 12-bit type arrangement over the air. Now, if they provide it and it works, say 11-bit works, I'm not going to say no, but I'm also not going to say, well, I'm not flying that at Express LRS because it's 10-bit. I'm just not going to say that. That's kind of what started me on this little route of experimentation, playing with all these different boards and decoders and all this stuff. I was seeing stepping in my control surfaces I didn't like, but here's what I can tell you. If I take everything out of the equation, all the boards, all the converters, and I simply go with a 333 hertz output on PWM to a digital servo, that servo moves just as fine as I can manage on my radio. So for me, I'm done playing with the 11-bit, 12-bit question. I just don't care anymore. 10-bit is good enough for me. And if you think that you need more than that, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. But what I would say is that depending on your configuration and your setup, I think you're going to be hard pressed to recognize any practical. When I say a small movement, man, this is what I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see that stick moving, but that's how small the movement is in order to register an 11-bit or a 12-bit movement on a signal board that tells you, yeah, that's 12 bits. That's 12 bits of movement. Very, very challenging, and I just personally don't think there's any practical advantage, which means for me, I'm pretty much going to be settling on some type of LoRa technology. I like Express LRS, and I really like these as well. The FRM stuff, the FlySky stuff, I like it a lot. I'll be watching FlySky very closely. The one difference that I would say is that this receiver, $13, something very equivalent, very close to this in terms of capabilities, $35 if you buy the commercial version. So, keep that in mind. Just keep in mind. I'm not making a judgment call. If I thought the tech were better or more reliable or gave me more features, I'd spend the $30, right? That's not the problem. I'm just, talking about the facts. Okay. All right. Let me check the comments and we will see what's up next. Let's see. We want laser video. Don't hold out on us. You know, Hobie, honestly, so we went out that day to fly and we did the maiden on the Flash. And I told Dave, you know what, man, work's over. I'm putting the camera away and I'm just going to relax this time and just enjoy flying my plane because I don't get enough time to do that. So that was the reason. Put the camera away and just had a good time. And I probably got, Dave might chime in comments, but I think I got about 6 or 7, maybe 8 flights in on the laser. It was lovely. Beautiful time. So sorry, brother. You had to miss out on this one. I see lots of temp-controlled RX now. It's always been a problem that was tolerated or marketing, but I got to be honest with you, terminal insanity, I've never really worried about it. I live in Florida. It's freaking hot. I've been flying Express LRS for over a year at this point. I've gone through the entire heat cycle in the state, and I've never had a problem with reliability in the air. So, you know, maybe a little bit of a marketing thing, marketing edge to try and create separation in the field from one to the other. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm sure some of the guys might chime in and say, yeah, here's why it's better. But again, to me, it comes down to the practical impact, right? I haven't seen any reason that made me say while I was flying Express LRS that, oh my gosh, I got to get a temperature compensated oscillator now. You know, it just hasn't happened to me. Let's see. Robert says, and that's what's beautiful about that power distribution board is you can daisy. Yeah, you can daisy chain them. Good call, Robert. I didn't cover that, but you've got your battery input here, and you can plug another one of these boards right on top, and you can just keep on going. So yeah, you can daisy chain them. So that would be another opportunity maybe to distribute current if you needed to, because keep in mind you can join these channels together. On these boards, if you slide those dip switches over, you can join channel 1 and 2. So if you needed a little more current for a given servo, you could take those 2 pins, join them together, run a thicker wire, and there you go. You got more current delivery capability. So a lot of flexibility with this thing, and it's only $13. $13 plus shipping. I love them. I put them in a lot of my big planes, and they've been fine so far. All right, let's see. Radio Master binds the same way. Okay. 10 bits of resolution over 90 degrees of surface movement, less than 1.1 degree per step. I'm with you on this, John. Yeah, Jeff, it's one of those deals where I wanted to test it. I wanted to see for myself because there can be so much made of the conversation. But in my situation, for what I'm doing, I just don't see a physical, practical result that's going to make a difference worrying about 11-bit. If it's there, great. You know, if it's there, lovely. You know, wonderful. You know, that's awesome. But it's not, to me, it's no longer part of the buying decision. You know, just it's not part of the buying decision. Hey, Rob's here. It says, for reference, 1 click of fine trim in EdgeTX, OpenTX, JR, and FreeSky equals 1 US, which is 1024-bit resolution, 1024 resolution. So yeah, appreciate you, Rob. And by the way, Rob is one of the only other people I know other than the developers who went out and got the same board I did and started tinkering with it to measure. So I appreciate Rob's insights as always. So thanks, Rob, for the comment. Appreciate that. Kevin Miller's taken off. Great content. Well, I appreciate you. Let's see. It's the camera's fault. That's why the laser kept crashing. Yeah, I know, right? The laser boy. We're trying to bond. I really want to like that plane a lot. It's an amazing airplane. I love it. So I'll try and keep flying it quite a bit. All right. Okay, that's it on the comments. So I think that's it on that little segment. Let's move on. Let's see. That was the Happy Model EPW6 Express LRS PWM. They're on Race Day Quads if you want to check them out. $13.99. I bought my stash, so you guys go ahead and knock yourself out. All right, Q&A. Finally, Q&A. This is turning into a little bit of a night, isn't it? All right, Q&A. Here we go. So if you haven't been here for this part before, I try and find questions and comments that I think are broadly applicable or that tickle my fancy. Sometimes people say things that just put a smile on my face, so I like to share them. So this question comes from Justin. He says, why am I getting a firmware update error, device not responding? So the problem I have with answering this type of question is I have no idea what he did. So this is an education opportunity. If you're going to ask questions on the channel, first off, get on Discord, okay? Discord is such a better medium to exchange information and help troubleshoot than YouTube comments. And the reason I say that is because, so Justin leaves a comment. He says, why am I getting firmware update error, device not responding? I don't know what flash method he used. I don't know if he was in a bootloader. I don't know if he had the right binary. I don't know what radio he's using. I don't know what he's trying to flash. If he's trying to flash Edge or his NPM. I don't know if he has an NPM or Express LRS. I mean, there's so many different ways this could go. So I really can't answer questions like this. So sorry, Justin, get on Discord and that'll give us an opportunity to dig in and figure out what's happening. Okay. TK says the Trainer King is a great, so this came off the 5 things video. He says it's a great suggestion. A friend crashed mine, had been wrecked numerous times, but I don't feel like gluing it back together. Just ordered a new one and I may put a stronger motor in it. This is why I stopped on this one. It's the motor. A lot of times in the trainers, I think we do students a disservice by making the motors too underpowered sometimes, because the motor can be used to help out. Now, I know this can lead into a rabbit hole. I get it. There's going to be a lot of people saying, oh, you got to learn to fly the plane. I know. I learned to fly in Cessna 152s. So that's not exactly your, a 3D aerobatic stunt jet plane from the military, right? It's just not what it is. So I do understand the nature of it, but I've said this for a long time when it comes to trainers. I kind of sometimes feel bad, the junk that we hand students and say, here, learn to fly, and the plane is terrible. So when it comes to motors, if we're talking, there's a little bit of a trainer theme going on here, right? Since we're talking about motors and trainer configurations, make sure that the plane is right. Make sure that it flies well, that it's trimmed right, that it's balanced right, that you've done, all the tests, you've landed it, you make sure it stalls straight, it's got the balance, help your students out on that front. Let them focus on the flying. They can learn all the nuance later. But the other big one is the motor. Don't settle for way underpowered motors in your trainers. I'm not saying it's got to be an FMS Flash, right? That's ridiculous. You don't want to give that to a student. But you also don't need to give them some lethargic piece of junk that's going to be painful for them to fly the whole time. And if you want to teach throttle discipline, then teach throttle discipline. But there's no reason you shouldn't give them enough power to help the plane fly well. Okay. Again, I have a tendency to overpower. You guys know that. You guys know I like a real strong motor. Everyone that follows my channel, I know you know that. And I stopped on this question because he said, I need to put a stronger motor in it. And I'm like, yeah, every time I get into a trainer conversation, I'm concerned about the performance of the craft. So hopefully the Ranger does well for Fred. If not, I will teach Fred or upgrade that motor and show how to get it into a state where, it's flying well, and then we can use our sticks for throttle management rather than relying on the limitation of the motor. Okay. All right. That's it. That's it on that comment. Lightbulb Jim says, nice. S-Bus is a key ingredient to help ELRS go mainstream, in my humble opinion. Notice there were 5 responses, thumbs up to that. And I would say, yes, absolutely. I've been so thrilled that S-Bus is out there and it's configurable and it works. I've tested it. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, don't come to me and cry if you put S-Bus on your stuff and you crash. Okay. I don't even want to hear it. S-Bus is still in the master branch. It's not mainstreamed yet, which means the developers haven't finished their job. We have to let them finish their job. And when they're finished with it, then you can use it in production. However, pause for effect. If you're willing to risk your model, go ahead and get the master branch and try it. I can tell you that I've put S-Bus on jets, on very expensive extreme flight and skywing planes, and I've been flying it just fine. No problems. That does not mean that your experience will be identical. So I just have to put that caveat out, but I agree wholeheartedly with Lightbulb Jim. S-Bus is a key feature to getting Express LRS on a much broader set of radio equipment out there in the hobby, as far as I'm concerned. Let's see. Underpowered, though, is underpowered when you have to get out of a bad situation. It's nice to have adequate. Yeah, exactly, Robert. I mean, you also don't want to give a 16-year-old kid a Ferrari as their first car either, right? You got to govern it a little, but you also want that 16-year-old kid to be able to merge onto the highway at a safe highway speed and not get run over by a semi that's moving 50 miles an hour, right? That's the point, right? You got to have adequate power, good power. It doesn't have to be a rocket ship, but that's always my beef with the trainers, man. The trainers need to be good enough, or better than good enough. It can't just be, well, it flies, no, it should do loops. It should do rolls. It should hover. I don't mind saying that it should at least Harrier, maybe not hover, but at least Harrier. And that way you've got adequate power so you can do different things, right? And they'll grow into it rather than being grown out of it the second time they fly it. Absolutely. Terminal Insanity says, what's your opinion on the flight test foam board? Oh, I love them. No, they're not difficult to fly at all. In fact, flight test, my very first real plane after my trainer was a GWS slow stick. I taught myself on a GWS slow stick. I didn't have anybody to help me. I did it on my own. So GWS slow stick, that was my first plane. And then after I got the slow stick up and down, I was able to land it. The very first thing I built was a flight test Mustang, and I built 3 of them. And I literally flew the wings off of them. I love those planes because they will teach you about building. They'll teach you about control placement. They'll teach you how to fly. The flight test Mustang is a very competent little foam board plane, a lovely little airplane. I love flight test. My thing with flight test, I've just simply outgrown it. I've outgrown it. I want my planes to last longer. Foam board planes can be made to last pretty long, and some of them are just beautiful, and it's an interesting aspect of the hobby. But, if I go out in the garage and I look at a foam board Mustang and I look at the 67-inch laser and I just say, well, which one am I going to take today? That it's kind of an easy call on me on that one. Robert says, totally agree on the power. Yeah, absolutely. Detram holds the master key to trainers because everything they have is underpowered. Yeah. Detram, and that's the sad part with Detram on a lot of their stuff, the Dynam planes. So many times I was able to fix their issue with an upgraded ESC and a bigger prop, and maybe a slight upgrade on the motor. I think it was the Corsair going from a 500 kV to the 650 kV was exactly what that plane needed. And I never understood why they did that. I never got it. It's almost like they need to send these things to people like me, so we can give them some feedback, honest feedback, not feedback from a sycophant like you find on certain YouTube channels out there. Okay, let's see. Alex G says 1.5 megs is great, but what is the distance for that throughput, and what about penetration? So the thing about Alex's question, he's referring to the FlySky serial communication protocol for the FRM303 and the radio. So we have to provide some separation. So he's crossed a line here where he's attributing the serial communications, which happens on these pins, between these pins and the radio. He's crossed over from that communication stream to the over-the-air communication stream, which goes from the antenna over the air to the receiver. Okay. So to go back to his question, not the workspace, we need the blackboard. To go back to his question, he says, what is the distance for that throughput? Well, it's not a distance question. It's 1 inch. It's 1 inch from the pin to the motherboard. That's the distance, because that 1.5 megs it's a rate related to the communications protocol between the transmitter itself, that's this, and the host controller, that's this thing. Okay, that's the 1.5 megabit question. And then he further says, what about penetration? Same deal. We don't concern ourselves with penetration for the serial protocol. Now, what he's asking about is the 2.4 gigahertz piece. So when it comes to distance on 2.4 gigahertz, which is the rate of the RF signal frequency, that's the frequency, the rate, 2.4 gigahertz, it's a microwave, just like your Wi-Fi, 2.4, 5.8. That is subject to the same constraints as any other 2.4 gigahertz LoRa modulated signal in the case of LoRa, or standard AFH DS3 spectrum hopping signal that you find on pretty much any other radio system. LoRa kind of broke the internet with the way they do things in modulation. They really kind of changed the physics rules, but it's a long, complicated conversation. I've already covered in other PilotJams, not going to do it again tonight. But the bottom line is that the FRM303 using LoRa, I expect would behave similarly, not necessarily identical, because there can be programming nuances between things like your telemetry rate and your refresh rate and your frequency updates on your PWM signals. There's different factors that come into play, and I don't see the code on the FRM303. So what I would say is that if you're using LoRa modulation on the FRM303 to a LoRa receiver from FlySky, I would expect similar behavior as we see in Express LRS, because the modulation and the frequencies are the same. There are other factors that can influence those outcomes though, so keep that in mind. Penetration, 2.4 gigahertz is 2.4. It's radio half-life is not really up for debate. 2.4 is going to half-life just like any other 2.4. So it's not like we're talking about 900 hertz or 433 or some other technology, it's still 2.4. So the penetration question would be, I would answer, it will penetrate similarly to other 2.4 gigahertz technologies. And all of that said without actually busting out Wi-Fi gear. That's just having some understanding of the RF frequency and what we use the different frequencies for. All right, this guy, Will Wanty. This is the first comment that Will Wanty left on my channel that I know of. Sometimes I guess I may miss comments. It happens. But this is the first time I saw a comment from Will Wanty, and it was on the Fly Sky, and he said Betamax. That's all he said, Betamax. So I actually thought about that for a little while, and I thought, what is that? What is that comment? What is he driving at? And it took me a little while to figure it out, but I think I got it figured out. If you guys remember back in the day when VHS and Betamax were in a competitive landscape, Betamax was a superior technology. Okay. Betamax by all standards was the superior tech, but VHS was kind of like Spectrum, right? It pervaded the market with marketing. They got out there, they got the grassroots stuff going on. And at the end of the day, VHS won the format war for video cassette tapes. Betamax was relegated to the ash heap of history, right? And I think that's what Will Wanty was trying to say. He's looking at this Fly Sky FRM303 and he says, hey, is that Betamax? And I think that's what he was trying to say. And my answer to him was, I hope not. I hope that the FRM303 and the Fly Sky technology that they're putting out there stand on its own merits. And what I can tell you guys after talking to some of the developer crowd and other people involved, Fly Sky does have a following. Make no mistake about it. So hopefully their following plus their integrations with EdgeTX will help expand their footprint. And the reason I say that, I love Express LRS. I do. I love it. I just got through telling you guys for 15 minutes that these are the receivers. This is my mainstream radio setup, right? I just got through telling you that. So I love Express LRS, but I also like competition because it drives things like innovation and cost management, right? So as we see innovation come out of companies like this, there are ideas that can be maybe cross-pollinated too. Like what if these guys adopted binding phrases and these guys adopted a button on the receiver that lets you switch between cross CRSF and S-Bus and PWM, right? I'm just saying, that's what I'm interested in, is seeing how competitive pressure in the market helps drive the technology forward and helps drive pricing down, which is one of the reasons I adopt open source. Open source lends itself to competitive pressure because it's out there for everyone to see. They can see the code, they can get the ideas, they can say, hey, that's actually a really good idea. We should put that in our stuff. And vice versa, the open source guys can go, yeah, and I know they've done it. They can look at the other technology and go, yeah, we got to do that. We have to have technology like that in our solution. So, it's a way for the competitive landscape to stay healthy. And so that's why I hope that Will Wanty is not foreshadowing an outcome. I'd like to see Fly Sky be successful with this release. Honestly, I would like that to happen. All right. Ron says, John, at 14 minutes in the video, you're putting the file AF bin into the firmware folder. Oh, okay. I'm using a new blank card. Would creating a firmware folder to stick the file onto the micro SD or the file directly onto the SD card, does it require an TX16S formatted card? Yeah. Thing about the firmware folder. Let me just bring that up on the radio real quick and show you guys. The firmware folder has, to me, one very specific use case, and that is that when you are in the bootloader, I'll click on System, we'll look at the file browser and the firmware folder. So this is the folder that is being referenced in the question. You don't have to put your firmware in here, okay? You can see that I have it. I've got an R161 V2 FCC binary. I've got an F-port binary. I've got a multi-module binary in there. I've got a TX16S binary in there, right? I've got all these binaries in there. So it's a nice place to keep your firmwares in one place that are, currently running your radio. That's one way to use it. But the more important reason for it is that you don't have to be, if you're going to flash, say your multi-protocol module, if you right click on this or long press, you can do a flash internal multi, right? You don't have to have the firmware in that folder for that to work, as far as I know. I haven't really tried it, to be honest, but I think it can be in another folder. But here's why the firmware folder does matter. When you turn the radio off and you go into bootloader mode by pressing T4 and T1 in and pressing the power button and bringing up the bootloader, when you click on write firmware, there's only one place that the bootloader will look, and that is in that firmware folder. So if you don't have your binary in there, then you can't flash it from the bootloader. You see how it says /firmware right there? So that's why you have to have the firmware folder. And if you don't have it, it's fine. You can make it. One of the very cool things about the TX16S and EdgeTX is that there are no secret folders, no hidden registry files, none of that stuff. None of that exists on this radio. It's all out in the open. So if you're supposed to have firmware and you don't, make it. Just put it in there. It's not like you need some special system right to do that. And that's also true for folders like your images folder or your scripts folder, or your tools folder, or anything else. Okay. So if you're missing a folder, you can make it by yourself. You don't need a tool or anything else to do it for you. Okay, let's see. I'm going to click next, and Mark Maynard, in response to the team pilot video on Joe Nall, all he said was, wow. I wrote back and I said, agreed. I love that kind of comment, because if you didn't watch that video, you should, but my gosh, are those guys talented people. Talented flyers. I agree, Mark. Wow, no doubt. All right. Miller RC, he says the Joe Nall noon demos are so insane to watch. Excellent filming, by the way. By far the best noon demo coverage I've seen. Miller RC gets the love for the week, and my favorite comment of the week. Thank you, Miller RC. I appreciate you. Favorite comment of the week right there. Miller RC is now my officially, for this week, my favorite subscriber. Thanks for the nice comment, man. I appreciate you. Alf says, great footage and some incredible 3D flying. Wish I was half as good. You know, this brings me to another point, and I'm not going to rant. I promise you I'm not going to rant. I'm just going to make a simple point. Watching all this flying going on, I realized that, you know, it just kind of reinforced this concept that everybody in the hobby is in a place. Some people are in a different place than others. Some people are beginners. Some people are intermediate. Some people are advanced. I actually had some guy come into the channel on one of my helicopter videos and goes, God, why are you flying that? You should be flying a Blade 230. Why are you flying a Smack 3D helicopter? First off, it's my money, my hobby, so I'll fly whatever the hell I want. Thank you very much. That's my first answer. And my second answer is the way you excel and learn is by pushing yourself. So if you can get equipment that can fly better than you, then you can grow into it. And that's my point of view on that. So here's the deal. You know, I've never claimed to be some Smack 3D pilot. I'm not. I can do some tricks. I can get the planes up and down pretty safely. I've got a pretty good track record, although Laser kind of kicked my butt and broke my, what do they call that? The OSHA days without an incident score. Thanks, Laser. But anyway, the point of the matter is that people are in different places in the journey, and you really have no business being judgmental about that. So don't be judgmental about it. Just encourage. That's what it's about. It's about encouraging people wherever they are to take that next step, right? To improve, develop their skill, practice. If they ask questions and want to learn more about aerodynamics or about electricity or about radio configurations or about flying a 3D maneuver or about flying a helicopter or a quad, it's your job, if you know how to do it, to be respectful and answer. That's the whole point. Pay it forward, right? So, you know, for those guys out there who think it's okay to come into a channel or a Discord or get in comments and say, man, you have no business flying that, mind your own damn business. Your job is to encourage. Now, that said, I don't mind offering a little bit of advice about safety, you know, and taking care to not hurt yourself. And if somebody asks for my opinion, I'm certainly happy to give it. You know, but as far as being critical, no, that's not the way. That's not the way. You have to encourage people and say, hey, you know, if you see a safety concern, obviously, you know, maybe you have a polite talk about it and encourage them to think about safety implications, of course. But if you see somebody flying a plane around and they're getting their arms around it and they seem to be under control, but they're not smack talking it around and throwing it around like Santiago Perez or Jace Ducia or any of those guys, give me a break, man. They're trying, right? They're in the hobby. They're learning. It's their money. What business is yours to be critical? So don't. And that's what got me thinking with Alf. Great footage, some incredible 3D flying. I wish I was half as good. I thought the same thing. I love to try these 3D maneuvers. I'm trying to teach myself stuff, but I wish I was half as good as some of these guys too. But these, they've put in the time, so they've earned the, that admiration and by the way, they're also inspirational. So that's your job out there, right? Be supportive, be encouraging, and help. Don't be a negative. Don't be a negative. Don't be a Carl. Don't be a Carl. All right. Dieter says, seems like the included stabilizer isn't a good fit for you ever see, it was Saving Private Ryan when the guy was complaining and Tom Hanks said, see, this is the way you complain. I like Dieter's comment and his approach here. He says, seems like the included stabilizer isn't a good fit for the plane. Evidently no launch mode. True. I did not see a launch mode, and I actually looked for that. To keep your hands safe when launching. Although my counterpoint to that would be that the way I launched it, the rudder would have kicked my hand out of the prop wash. So just the thought, but that's one of the reasons I launched it that way, is because the rudder would have moved my hand out of the prop arc. So just keep that in mind. But no launch mode to keep your hand safe while launching. I agree. I think that's a good idea for most gyros. They should have that. Struggles with the high speed pass. Yep. It definitely oscillated. And no configuration options. Yep. There's no configuration options. All you get to do is load a profile. Something you'd expect in a beginner docile plane. Of course, this is not a beginner docile plane, the Flash. It's a intermediate to advanced plane. So I'm not sure what the correlation was there. He said the profile is interesting, kind of sci-fi-esque. Thanks for the review. That's a perfect comment. I have no problem. He has a point of view. He's not wrong. He made a connection to a beginner, which I didn't quite understand, but it's great. This is the kind of dialogue you should have, right? We should be able to talk like this and say, yeah, here's what I saw. Here's what I like. Here's what I didn't like. And I thought he did it very well. So Dieter, good job, man. Nice comment. And that my reply to him was, yep, pretty good synopsis. I thought it was a pretty accurate description. All right. And that brings us back to number 1. So Justin Tiller. So that wraps up the Q&A. And now I'm going to go back to the desktop. I'm going to check comments and then we're going to roll. So let's see. Detram holds the master key to train. Okay. We covered that. Trying to get my little cousin in RC. It looks like a good option when he inevitably crashes. Terminal Insanity, go look at the Crash Test Hobby Albatross. If you're getting someone brand new into RC, especially if they're going to be flying on their own, man, look at that Crash Test Hobby Albatross. I think that's one of the best trainers you can buy. Just go check it out. Crash Test Hobby Albatross. Robert says Detram Dynam were designed for upgrades, like the cheap man's inline 6. You could put it. Yeah, I agree, Robert. It's definitely designed for upgrades. They're good looking planes. They're good. I always thought the Dynams were good 3-foot planes. 3 feet away, they look pretty cool. Up close, let's see. Have to run. Hobie's taking off. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Peaceful, hopefully. Fly Sky was my first radio. Hell, it didn't take Free Sky long to jump on. Yeah, I know. Robert's poking the bear, and he knows it. What's worse is he knows it. He is poking the bear. I need Radio Link R12DS support for Radio Master TX12 Mark II. You got to check the NPM protocol page, Anil. There's a link out there. Just go Google NPM multi-protocol module protocol page and you'll find it. And check out what's available for Radio Link. I know there are a couple of Radio Link protocols. I'm not sure if R12DS is in that list or not. Lyndon says, greetings from Georgetown, Guyana in South America. Well, greetings to you, Lyndon. Thanks for joining. All right. And Anil says, hi from Turkey. Well, hi from Florida. Glad you could make it. All right. That's it on the comments. Let's see what is next. The Q&A and, the giveaway. Giveaway is simple. You guys know what it is. David Knutz. I don't know if the David Knutz is around, but he called it. He knew right away. So the giveaway is going to be the Flash. I'm going to give away the FMS Flash. Like I said, listen, here's the deal. If you win it and you want it, great. I don't mind. What I would say though, is that if you're not an intermediate flyer, I would recommend leaving this for the guys who are. All right. I can tell you guys for the FMS Flash, it'll come with receiver ready. I'll leave the motor in. You'll need a battery. You'll need a receiver. It'll be a plug and play. As far as the plane goes, there is no damage to the plane. There is a black skid mark on the belly from when I landed on the runway, but no damage to the plane. And I did fly it and land it in the grass. There's a little bit of dirt on the nose, a little bit, but nothing wrong with it. And the way this is going to work is that after the video is over, you have to leave a comment in the comment section, not in the chat. All right. I'm going to just type it out. This is the chat. This is the chat. This does not does not count. You can't leave it in here. You have to leave it in the comments section. There's David. And you have to say something like gimme or gimme. One of those two spellings. I don't care how many times you enter, however many times you enter, that dictates your chances of winning. The more times you leave a comment that says, gimme the flash, gimme the airplane, whatever, the more chance you have of winning. I use random software. It always happens on a Wednesday night. The cutoff is Wednesday, the 31st at midnight. No entries will be accepted after Wednesday, the 31st at midnight. Then what will happen is sometime after the 31st at midnight, I will use random software to pluck, not plick. Did I just say plick? I will use software to randomly pluck a name out of the comments to choose a winner, and the software will look for that word gimme, Gimmie or E. You have to use that word in your thing. Make me laugh. That carries a little bit of extra weight. Okay. So make me laugh. Funny comments are better. So what'll happen is I'll use software to pick a name off the list, and I will announce the winner on the PilotJam 1 week from tonight. So on June 2nd, we will announce the winner of the FMS Flash. And after I announce the winner, you have 24 hours. You have 24 hours. So that means by 8:30 p.m. Eastern time on June 3rd, you have to send me an email. Sorry, the date on here is wrong. It's not 5/31. That's when that's when the name will be picked. It's not 5/31. That's wrong. In fact, just because this is on video and I don't want any concerns or questions about it, I'm going to adjust it right now. I'm going to make this say June. This has to say June. I don't want any confusion. So we're going to say June 2nd. And that'll be at 2100. That's fine. There we go. Now it's been updated. So you guys can see it's correct now. So by June 2nd at 2100, you have to send me an email showing me that you're over the age of 18. Sorry, I don't deal with children. If you are a child and you win, you can get your mom or dad to send me a picture of their ID showing that they're over the age of 18, and I will send it to them. I don't deal with children. And no comms via Telegram. Do not fall for that. If some jackhat comes in and says, oh, contact me on Telegram, don't do it. That's not how we do things around here. We do it in the video, live stream. Okay. And then number 4, no email, no prize. If you don't get me your email by 6/2 at 20, and geez, it says, can you believe that? Look at the rules, guys. It's not 2022, it's 2023. By 6/2/2023, sorry about the typos. No email, no prize. I will select an alternate winner. Okay. So you have to enter with the word gimme. You have to send me an email. If you're announced as a winner, only the winner needs to do it. Not everybody, just the winner. You have to send me a copy of your driver's license showing you're over the age of 18 by 6/2 at 2100 GMT -5. That's Eastern Florida time. For those of you who don't know the GMT thing. And if you don't give me the email, you don't get the prize. That's that. So that's the contest. That's not a contest. Not a contest. No skills required. It's a giveaway. Straight up giveaway. Okay. All right. There we go. We got the giveaway under control. And let's see. Coming up. All right. Coming up. I'm going to check comments before we get into coming up. Robert says, just to let you know, David is the gimme champ, so bring your A game. That's right. If David goes after the plane, you guys better bring your A game, because I think one time he put 1,000 gimmies in a video. It was crazy. So if you want the plane, you better get in there. You got to go after it. That's just the way it works, man. He improves his odds by putting in entries. By the way, yeah, Europe is allowed. Sure, Dirk, no problem. It's worldwide contest. I didn't put a limit on it, so it's worldwide. Anywhere you are, I will send it out. RCVR, the email under the giveaway rules that now I have to enter. The email is john@rcvideoreviews.com. So there it is in the text, john@rcvideoreviews.com. Okay, are you going to tell us more about the secret expensive gizmos sent to you for review? Oh, sure. Well, why not? Coming up video. Okay. Sure, Jeff, I'll tell you about it. See, you waited all the way to the end to ask the question, so I gotta pay that back, right? Gotta pay that back. Okay, so coming up, what's coming up is we got the Ranger, the FMS flight with the Ranger. I actually flew the F-22 Raptor and I ran it out of battery away from the runway. So no damage to the plane. Very, I belly landed it, gear was up, put it down on the grass, no problems. I did take a little piece of foam off one of the stabilators, so I glued it back on. It's back in business. I'll be flying that plane again. No, I didn't have VBAT, so leave me alone. Stop busting my chops about it. That was my fault. Stupid, I know. It has VBAT on it now, though. You can believe that. But I was just having so much fun flying the plane that I ignored my timer like a dumbass. So that was my fault. And I put the plane down in the grass as a result. But the good news is the plane landed dead stick, no problem. Very easy. So I'll be getting another video put together for the Ultra, the F-22 Ultra, or Raptor Ultra. I can tell you the plane flew great, no problems at all. So we'll get that done. We're going to be doing a video for Fred with the FMS Ranger. So we'll be doing tomorrow. We're going to try and go, if the weather is cooperative, I'll be doing the maiden flight. And then after I'm done with the maiden, we're going to give it to Freddie. I'll do some training with Fred for a little while. And if he gets the hang of it and he's flying it around, then I'll pick up the camera and try and get Freddie filming, or I'll try and film Fred flying the FMS Ranger. So that'll be coming up. And then let's see, in terms of other inbound, I do have another airframe inbound. I forgot. I'll go ahead and share it with you, and I'll even show you what I'm going to do to it. So the other airplane that I have inbound is a Bix-2. And the reason I got a Bix-2 is because Hobby King was doing a little flash deal and they were selling them for $60. $60 for a Bix-2. And I was thinking about Fred, and I was thinking about my M4 helicopter. By the way, I had to order some spares for the M4. They're now inbound. When the spares come, I'll repair the M4 and we'll get the maiden done on that thing too. So anyway, I was thinking about Fred and getting him up on a trainer, and I don't remember where I saw it. So I always try and give credit where credit is due. You guys know that. So I apologize, whoever brought it up. Somebody mentioned this idea of putting a Vario. This is an Express LRS Vario receiver. It's the ELRS R24V from Maytech. And what I was thinking about was doing some logic, taking the telemetry and turning on some logic so that when the Vario hits, say, 100 feet or 120 feet, I can automatically enable stabilize mode on the gyro. And so I was thinking about Fred when I came up with this idea. I thought, man, that would actually be kind of a cool idea. If the Vario is fast enough, right? It's got to be fast enough. And I don't really care about accuracy. Some people, I was talking with Rob about accuracy, and I don't really care too much about accuracy in terms of, if I'm flying and I look at the plane and I say that plane is at 50 feet and the gyro says it's at 200 feet, I don't really care as long as it always says it's at 200 feet when I say it's at 50. Does that make sense? So as long as it's consistent and fast enough, I think it'll work. We can go on the radio and say, hey, anytime the Vario altitude goes below, say, 100 feet, I want you to override channel 5 to stabilize mode. So that's what I'm thinking. And I'm going to try it out on the Bixler. I'm going to put a Hobby Eagle A3 Super 4 in there. I'm going to use some logic on the radio. I'm going to say, when I go below a certain altitude, I want this to activate and go into stabilize mode. And what I'm trying to work out there is something similar to what I'm trying to work out on my M4 helicopter, which uses the Spirit GPS puck, right? Same kind of idea, is a hard deck, but without a GPS. This one relies on a Vario. And the reason I'm doing that is because it'd be a really simple setup. No flight computer, no iNav, no Betaflight, no GPS, no nothing. It's just a Vario receiver that's already integrated into Express LRS and a simple gyro. Very simple configuration. I'm going to try. Hopefully it works. So I have a Bix-2 on the way to work that out. If that one works out, I will put the logic configuration in the Radio Master channel or the EdgeTX channel on my Discord, okay? In case you'd like to see that one. But I have a feeling it should. We'll see. I don't know. Got to see how this Vario does. All right, so that's coming up. And then obviously the F-22 Maiden's coming up, the M4 Maiden's coming up, and the FMS Ranger Maiden is coming up. So a lot of flying coming up. And we have a 3-day weekend, so hopefully I'll get some flying done, although I don't guarantee it's all going to be on camera. Some of it's just going to be for John. And then let's see. The other thing Jeff asked about. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys in. Lobster switches are pretty common. Rock lobster. Okay, cool. Thought so. Okay, the other thing that's going on, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys in on this one too. I picked up another sponsor that kind of shocked me. I didn't see this one coming, and they asked me if I'd be happy to review their product. And I looked at it and said, yes, I would love to review that. And they said, okay. And about a week later, I got a ship notification, and the device, it's a $1,700 laser engraver / cutter. So it's on the way. It's a AZETR, ATEZR. That's what it is. ATEZR 8er. L2, 36 watts. It's 16.8 inches by 16.8 inches, or I think it's like 420 by 420 or something like that. And when that gets here, I'm going to bring Dave over, and Dave and I are going to set up. And by the way, we are literally monkeys with a football. Now, I'm pretty decent with software. I can figure stuff out in software pretty good. So I know already I need to get Lightburn. So I'll be downloading that. I'll be messing around with it. We will be setting the laser up on camera. We're going to try our first cutting on the camera. We're going to do a whole video, and it is monkeys with a football. I don't claim to be an expert on laser cutters. You know that, but there's real opportunity in the hobby for a laser cutter. And I know, for example, some guys on the channel on Discord use laser cutters to cut their own kits and their own parts and their own motor boxes and all kinds of stuff. So I have all kinds of ideas on how to use that laser cutter, and that is on the way. It's been shipped. So be on the lookout for that. I think it'll be very cool to get a laser cutter and show you guys how to use it as an engraver, how to use it as a cutter. I'm interested in things like firewall or motor cross mounts. You know, have you ever built a motor or built an airplane where the cross mount was misaligned and you had to fill it with epoxy? And it's kind of a pain in the neck. Wouldn't it have been nice just to say, you know what, I'm just going to cut a piece out of wood and reshape it and put the new cross mounts here and just glue that down? Wouldn't that be nice? Like, very nice feature. So I have all kinds of different ideas. And I know when I told Dave about it, he had all kinds of ideas as well. So we have a laser engraver and cutter on the way. I don't have a tracking number, so I don't know exactly when it's going to be here. It'll get here when it gets here. So be on the lookout for that. And with that said, that wraps up what's coming up. There's a lot of things heading our way on the channel, all kinds of good stuff. And I also know Radio Master's got some things planned too. So I'm not really at liberty to talk about what they're doing, but there's some things happening with Radio Master, and they've already kind of told me, you know, what they have in mind. So there's going to be a lot more coming. All I can say is keep an eye on the channel, and the content will keep flowing. I also want to remind you guys, don't forget about Patreon. If you like what you see here, you're learning something, you want to help with things like, you know, Vario receivers and Logic and Spirit Fly Barless and, you know, me monkeying around with different gyros to figure out what works the best. Patreon.com/RC Video Reviews. You can do that. I also got the merch store up and running. So below my videos, I've got coffee mugs and stickers and stuff you can buy if you want to contribute that way and get something tangible for your goods. And I've got some funny t-shirts. If you haven't checked out the merch store, make sure you take a look. It's under all the production videos. You can see links for all the merchandise, the t-shirts and stuff. So go get yourself a little, you know, RCVR t-shirt. And Freddie says, yeah, the M4 review soon. Yeah, as soon as I get the parts for the M4, Fred, we talked about that. So Jeff says, yeah, I guess. See my comment in your last PilotJam. Oh, yeah, you did, right? I couldn't let on. I didn't want to give it away yet. I wanted to wait until it was shipped. You know, I wanted to see that shipment notification. So David says, give me the laser cutter. No, wrong laser, buddy. Give me the laser cutter. Sorry, dude. I think I'm going to hold on to that one. So, all right, guys, that wraps up the PilotJam. I hope you all had a good time. I know we went really long tonight, man. This is the longest PilotJam we've had in a while, but there was a lot happening. We had a full, you know, it was a 2-week span, a lot of material, a lot of video stuff, a lot of content on the channel, all kinds of things happening around here. So I hope you appreciate the, oh, David's got his t-shirt. Good. I hope you guys appreciate the content, and I hope you appreciate the pacing and that I keep it coming. You know, I'm working hard to keep this channel relevant and keep the content flowing. So I hope you enjoy it. If you do, make sure you smash that thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know new videos hit the channel. That's all I've got for tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me on a Friday night. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Get out there and fly something. Take it easy.